Live with Kevin Rankin.
What's happening, everybody? Thank you for being on All Access Live with Kevin Rankin. This is going to be an awesome week. I've got an amazing guest today. You know that I've got Sean Berahmand on. Tomorrow, I've got an amazing guest, Mickey Thomas. You know him from Starship and Elvin Bishop Band. So Fooled Around, Fell in Love, and Find Your Way Back, Jane, all those amazing tunes, those classic rock tunes. He'll be on here tomorrow. Before we even get started talking about these guys, let me make sure that I thank my sponsors at 5 Star Guitars. If you didn't know this and you're looking at this channel from anywhere other than Oregon, you might be surprised that if you order online and you go to the link below, go to 5starguitars.com/all-access-live. Everything you see there, you get a discount of 15%. And if you use the promo code, you'll also find that there's no sales tax in Oregon. So you're going to save a ton of dough. You can order guitars, you can get accessories, you can get repairs done. You can even do online lessons if you're outside the area, or if you're in the area, you can get amazing lessons from rock stars like Jennifer Batten, amazing world-class renowned guitarist. So go to 5starguitars.com/all-access-live and let them know I sent you. Now, if you're looking at this channel anywhere else other than YouTube, I want you to do me a favor. Open up another tab. Go to this link below. Go to youtube.com/@accesskevin. You can subscribe to this channel. Hit the like button for this, of course, and hit the little bell. You'll be notified about all the upcoming guests, like tomorrow's Mickey Thomas episode. And you'll also be able to go back and look through almost 300 other episodes of amazing visionaries, rock stars, athletes, actors, lots of wonderful people. But there are none other than there is none other more amazing than my next guest. You might have seen him in some bands in the Portland area. I first got to know him in a band way back in the day called the Orange Collection. He's self-titled by his last name as a solo artist, but he also has an amazing studio. So we're going to talk about that. And I'm just going to take him on camera, show the pretty face. Here's Sean Berahmand. How you doing, buddy?
What's up, man? How you doing, Kevin?
You don't mind me calling you that, right?
No, man, not at all. You can call me whatever. Just don't call me late for dinner.
Yeah, man. Well, am I making you late for dinner right now?
No, I'm good. Yeah.
All right.
I got a snack. I got some tea. I'm set.
Oh yeah, man. I got some tea too. Here, let's do this. I got my teacup with Mr. Rogers there.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, this one, his cardigan sweater shows yellow when it's hot, and then when it cools off, it goes to his black jacket. So
really, where'd you get that?
Yeah, Music Millennium, ladies and gentlemen. If you go to Music Millennium, boom, greatest record store on the planet. Just happens to have a link right there below. So
they have Mr. Rogers swag.
They do, man. They do. Yes. And I bet we could probably find some old Sean Berahmand music in Music Millennium.
Brother, I do have music in there. I don't think I ever collected my ching.
Oh man, well, there's probably
I'm a little bit of a procrastinator, so it's been a second.
Dude, well, you're an artist, man, and artists aren't supposed to really be marketers, right?
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do know what you're saying.
It's a whole nother bracket. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I see Scotty Kramer's here in the chat, man. So Scott is a devout follower of the show. He's an amazing dude. Been a tour manager for a ton of bands and runs sound for everybody on the planet. So I'm glad he's here, because if he hasn't worked with Sean Berahmand, he probably should. Dude, there's a lot to catch up on. And I'm not trying to do housekeeping by talking about the stuff that you got going on, but let's first just talk about what's going on right behind you, dude.
In terms of the studio?
Yeah, that's gorgeous,
this is
man.
Just man, it's a collection of tone. I kind of started chasing the dragon a long time ago, and it's funny because when I was younger, we all have our little mentors, our neighborhood mentors. And I remember this one cat, he's like, never get rid of your stuff. And that was a blessing and a curse, So yeah, I just collected a lot. I love analog, I love the whole marriage of analog to digital, obviously. I believe in analog because, I kind of come from that school,
Yeah.
So yeah, just a lot of it's just, I'm actually working on some stuff tonight, so I was going to turn it on. What's that?
Is it your stuff that you're working on?
No, or this is for another artist. Yeah, another artist. I just kind of going back in with revisions and stuff. He was over yesterday, and then we were just kind of, final and mix and stuff like that. I like to be in person, you know. I mean, it's easier because you're just there, you know what I mean? I
Yeah.
mean, you can do stuff over the thing, but we're in front of the monitors. We can kind of A/B stuff, and so we got like 99.9%. But then it's like, you know, some ad libs got to come up a decibel in the first verse. So
Right on, man.
that's why.
Stylistically, what are you working
Yeah.
on stylistically with them?
This is hip hop. Yeah, I would
Okay.
say, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely hip hop. And he's a really this particular gentleman. You know, I won't. His project's kind of he's developing it. You know, he's super talented. And you know, I just like he kind of came through the grapevine, like most people I'm probably, you know, messing with. But yeah, just you know, another thing. You know what I mean? Another thing, just kind of going. And but yeah, yeah, it's definitely hip hop. You know, I wouldn't really compare it to anything because honestly, like I found that hip hop I mean, everyone's got their own thing, you know.
Totally.
So
Yeah.
it's once you kind of figure it out and kind of what people are doing, you know, it's kind of like being a drummer. You know, everything's just the type of syncopation, the type of flow. You know, I'm not a rapper, like I'm not, but like I understand the language well. You know.
Did you
Just
grow up like appreciating like hip hop and that
oh,
kind of
definitely.
yeah?
Yeah, man, because like, you know, I grew up like obviously beats, you know, like rhythm, you know, because I mean,
Yeah.
you might have known this, Kevin, is like I started off playing drums. That was like my first
Yeah.
instrument as a child.
I know, dude. There's nothing you don't play. It's
Well,
ridiculous, man.
you know what? It's interesting, man, because I think I know a lot of incredible players, and I'm like, I don't really deem myself as that. You know, I mean, I know kind of how I began. I was kind of like the kid that didn't really have access to a lot of scholastics, I guess you could say. You know, I played in band and stuff, and I learned a lot. But I was too ADHD, man. You know, I
Yeah.
wasn't good at like paying attention, and so whatever I took in, I definitely learned. But there was a lot of people that are very focused. Those guys, you know, are on a different level of playing, and so a lot of things that I learned were just kind of like by feel and kind of like a student of life, you know, the
Yeah,
rhythm of
man.
life, I guess you could say.
Were you
But
playing Alonda Records early on?
definitely, man,
Yeah.
definitely. You know, Zepp all the way, Hendrix, you know, like Mitch Mitchell stuff, like
Yeah.
um Sabbath, love Sabbath. I mean, the pocket of Sabbath is
Oh,
undeniable. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
I was always as scared of jazz because again, man, it was just a language that I could not like wrap my head around. And I just didn't have that attention span, you know, as a child. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Well,
so I
yeah,
think it
dude.
was,
It takes.
you know
I
what I
mean,
mean?
like it's cerebral, and it's not that you're not. I know exactly what you're talking about, man. Because
Yeah.
for me, just like the other drummers I listen to, because you mentioned Zepp, you mentioned Sabbath. So my kid, you know, Caleb, my older son's a
Yeah,
massive Rush
definitely.
fan. Everybody I knew that was drummer, it was all about Neil Peart. But for
Yeah.
me, dude, I was wanting to hear Bonham, dude, because you can't not groove to anything that Bonham
Dude
played.
was
You know,
dirty. He was
dude, he
dirty.
was sloppy, drunk, just piece of, the dude was so primal. And
Yeah.
you probably would not have enjoyed the conversation you had with him, but you know that when he played, that's all the conversation you needed. Just everything felt right.
Yeah. It's like a personality, you know, it's like who would I probably hang out with, you know, like in terms of like when how they speak through their playing, you know, I wasn't really the techie kid, you know, I wasn't really hanging around those types of kids, you know, loved
Yeah.
them, knew a lot of them, but I just
Yeah.
like what I was cut from was just kind of like, you know, I was reaching for kind of a different thing, you know, and so when, yeah, like you say, like when you hear this music, it kind of speaks to you in a way like, ooh, it makes me feel cool and like kind of like an outlaw, you know?
Yeah.
So that was
Yeah.
like, yeah,
I pimped you, when I was promoting this show, man. I mean, I was talking about how just you exude cool. And it's so funny, man, because there are a handful of people that you see in sort of popular culture that
mm,
they walk into a room. They don't have to speak it. They don't self promote. I think about like celebrities and
mm.
musicians. I mean, I'm a massive Prince fan. I know you are too.
Yeah, right.
Kravitz is another one, right? So I remember seeing Kravitz open for U2, like, I don't know, a dozen years ago
I
up
think I
in
was at that
Seattle.
show.
The
No,
Seattle
I
show at the
wasn't.
Seattle. Okay.
I wasn't
It
at
was
that show.
well, the only reason I bring it up, man, is because U2 had like the biggest production going on. It was the 360 tour with the big crab looking stage setup. and the craziest light show, and it was all this massive 360-degree thing. But Kravitz opened the show during the daylight, no lights, no stage show. He walks on with his whole entourage of backup singers and horn players, and he's dressed just the t-shirt and jeans, and doesn't need any show. He walks
Right.
out and slays a stadium of like 80,000 people, right? And when he, even when he's talking to his monitor guy, he just dripped cool. That's what I think
Yeah.
of, dude. When I see you, dude, it's so funny,
Oh
man,
man.
because
Well, that's
I know you don't have to try,
appreciate.
and I'm not trying to kiss your ass. I'm telling you, it's
No,
one of the
I
things I love
appreciate it.
about you, man.
I mean, I've known you a long time, so you probably know better than I would. To me, I'm just still kind of like, you know how it is. I was kind of saying that the other day when we were figuring out the sound stuff, but you just do you, man. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And you learn a lot through other people. Sometimes you're like, really, really. Me, I'm just kind of like the kind of I'm a very determined kid. In my mind, like I'm still like that kid. That's just determined. That I guess didn't come. I didn't have a lot. We didn't come from a lot, so. I really cherish the things that I learned or the things that I could grab a hold of, certain people in my life that
yeah,
would kind of pull me through. Um, but I know for a fact, coming up through like artistry and even when we were kids, our folks just like we sat in front of a television. So like I knew the players that were, I mean, I love Johnny Have Good Times, you know what I mean? Like some of
yeah,
those guys were just my guys because they just like they didn't have no cares.
right.
And it's funny how we kind of emulate and we become that. I don't know, it just kind of becomes our I guess our signature, our color in life. So
Do you get stressed ever?
I mean I do, man. But it's funny, it's like, going through like I was thinking about this not too long ago, but just like going through the whole pandemic when everyone went through there, I was actually the opposite, man. I was really like I had a lot of enlightenment. And it made me realize how well or how much stress I've gone through in life and
Mhm.
how it was a really familiar territory. And primarily like in like family dynamics, and which I kind of look at nations or how we all kind of interact. It's kind of like one big family. And so when there's a lot of drama and stuff, it's like I was kind of used to dealing with a lot of that and just kind of being able to kind of curve it off and keep it moving.
You're the
So
diffuser.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So in terms of stress, it honestly takes a lot for me to get to like a level where like I feel it in my body, and I'm having things going on that aren't right. So
I mean, I mean, I guess I was thinking about how you and I first met.
mm,
It was back. It was probably late '90s, right? Does that sound about right? When Orange Collection was happening,
easily, yeah,
90, yeah,
yeah.
'98 maybe.
You
I
were good
remember.
friends with our bass player, or you guys went way back at the time.
Yeah, Luke Duran, baby. I mean, I
Yeah,
thank God for Luke, dude. If it wasn't for Luke, I don't know that you and I would have connected as early as we did. But Luke and I moved out from Montana together, right?
yeah.
And I know that he worked on some album cover work as well for you, right? And
Love Luke,
Luke's a
man.
dude. He's the most talented graphic designer I know. First of all,
Yeah.
and but he, like you, has this personality that, and I've seen it evolve over the last decade, really, where that
Mm.
guy found his zen, man. It's
Oh,
really cool to watch him and his family and his relationships, and and I see that, and I want to be around it more. So
ah,
with you, I mean, you and I, we haven't gotten to see each other in person in a few years,
right, right.
and I always feel really good around you. You
Ah,
have such really good energy, man. So
I
do
appreciate it,
you?
bro.
I mean, like, you talked about the family dynamic, and you said that there
Yeah.
was a lot of drama early on.
Mhm.
Did you feel like that was your coping mechanism? Is like you had to sort of like keep even keel to make sure that everything around was a little bit more smooth?
Yeah, man. I was, and it gets crazy to talk about this because it's definitely like again, it's like the content to me, man. Because I was the youngest child. I was definitely, you said the diffuser. I was absolutely that. I was a really optimistic child. I think it was a lot of things, man. It's just like, I have a lot of heart for people that have gone through a lot, and
Yeah.
when I say that, just been through the muck, man, and especially as children, they didn't really have a choice. They were just trying to kind of like get their needs met by whatever person or people that were providing for them, and I think that when you kind of don't have a lot, you tend to kind of just be grateful for what you have, and somewhere along the line, I can kind of trace it, but I was just the kid that smiled and just wanted to see everyone not,
Yeah.
interacting negatively and all that, and so I think I gathered a lot of skills through that when I was young, for sure.
You
Yeah.
were a Cali guy, right? You grew up in Cali?
Yeah, we were pretty. Yeah, it's funny. I tallied it up not too long ago, actually, and I went to 26 schools before I graduated, and
Wow.
yeah, it was pretty obnoxious there for probably prior to high school, and we lived in a lot of Southern Cal, so I think that like my upload, let's say, that we have our what 1 to 7 or whatever upload 1 to 8 was pretty much like SoCal,
Yeah.
and most people can peg it on me. Again, I forget, man, and
Yeah. Yeah.
I
There's
just
a surfer dude vibe about you, you
yeah,
know?
man. They call it like it's called like a valley swagger type
Yeah.
of thing, I
Valley
suppose.
swagger.
Valley
I,
swag,
oh my
Yeah, we grew
God.
up
That
on
is,
like Fast Times, Ridgemont High, like all that
yeah.
kind of like stuff, and I
You know
lived
what's
it.
funny, man? I had Robert Romanus on the show, Damone from Fast Times on my
Oh,
show.
Damone is my man. I didn't know
Yeah,
that, bro. I'll have to go back and look
dude,
at that episode.
it was the
Damone's,
greatest, man.
bro,
Yeah, dude,
it's the
because
place to be, man. He's you just gotta act like
yeah,
that's the place to be. Like I've told so many people that line that didn't even know. It's like that's how you just handle anything.
yeah. That's he was a great hang, man. He's a really good dude. He reminds me a lot of you. And he's
Ah,
there in Southern Cal doing he plays music, man. He's got a
oh
band.
really? That's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
I'm gonna snoop that out.
Yeah, man. Papa's Kitchen is the name of his band, actually.
Papa's
So
Kitchen.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I need to track him down, man. He was one that really we talked about the pandemic, how it kind of um it was about identity crisis, right? Because we're
Mm,
all stuck at home, not doing what it is that we identified with as, our identity,
right.
right? So, I mean, for me, I love being on stage more than almost anything, right? I like to
Yeah,
interact with the people and interact with the guys in the band,
I
and
know that about
and
you.
when that disappeared and I was stuck at home, I was grateful to have my dog, right? Me and my pug. But yeah, man, my identity crisis was kicking my ass a little bit. And he said the same thing. He's an actor, he's a musician, and he wasn't able to express himself out there. And it
Mm,
was a challenge. So you said you coped really well with it. I know
hmm.
one of the things you did. I mean, I'm blown away by the production you've done at your house, dude. I mean,
Oh, thank you.
you're an incredible. I mean, I would say like a sort of a custom builder, but you're really an interior visionary. Because I've
Yeah,
seen all the work you do, man. It's amazing.
it
Is that
it
is that
start.
a custom console?
Yeah, I built that, man. It's funny as I
Oh
scored
my,
the bones of it on Craigslist for like $50
oh my
down
god!
in town, Portland, and then I think it was an old it might have been an old live console, but I ended up like just skinning it up. And then I got this old walnut from this dude's attic. It was like his uncle. They'd been up there. Like the home's like a 78, 79, and it was kind of serendipitous because all this stuff kept on going back to this era, and it'd been up there since like 78, this walnut,
Wow.
and they were really long pieces, and I ended up scoring it, and then just kind of like, yeah, re-skinned it. And then I always wanted my camera because I like, my whole idea is like I like mixing with analog, but I don't like having to get out of the stereo field much. I want to kind of think, I want to be kind of fluent in my workflow, so I really wanted something that had everything kind of laid out constantly, so I can just be pinned kind of between the monitors, even when I'm tracking and stuff. It just made sense to me, so that's how I
Yeah,
laid it out.
that's beautiful, man. It
Thank
looks
you.
elegant.
Thank you.
You know, you talk about analog a bunch. Like,
Mm.
do you have like if I asked you to list a couple of your favorite records that had the best analog sound from back in the day, what would you peg as like some of your sonic favorites?
Man, that's tough, brother. Like, that's really tough. um
Do you have a live album that was one of your favorites?
In terms of like analog albums.
Yeah, like the best sounding live album, and maybe we go back to like 70s or 80s, you know?
I mean, I'm a really big fan of like the Marvin Gaye stuff, and
Okay.
some of
Yeah.
the early '80s, like when they were like R&B, when they were implementing uh, a lot of like, even like Phil Collins, like when they're
Yeah.
implementing a lot of like early technology, drum machines and stuff into the mix and combining it with analog. I'm really
Yeah.
fascinated by that because um, it's just a cool marriage. We heard a lot of records like you can definitely tell like 60s, 70s, 80s just got kind of like experimental, and
Right.
and
Yeah.
some of it was good, some of it was kind of thin sounding, but I like that kind of vibe. I loved like even like when Tom Petty, like there was when I was a kid, there was this oh man, there he was like one of the first videos, and it was when he was like he goes in the road and the door opens up, and what's that song? It's a
You Got
beautiful
Lucky?
love that
Yeah.
song. But
Totally.
just
Oh,
and I
man.
think what they had there was rhythmics, what's his name? Uh on that, the rhythmics producer
Oh,
writer.
yeah, Dave, t t yeah.
Yeah, I think even Annie Lennox sang backups on that song.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dave.
So they were all like true like big pioneers of that,
Yeah.
Um so I like that.
I could totally picture you back in, the days of like Marvin Gaye and Al Green and,
Man.
these it just in the studio, fly on the wall or participating. Did
Yeah.
you, do you like, what was the earliest concert you remember seeing?
Well, it was the Platters. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I went to the Platters, and it was
Wow.
like a reunion concert. And it was just really random actually. My grandmother, we lived in Bend, Oregon, of all places, and she had a friend that just happened to get these I don't know why she had the tickets, but it was like in this auditorium at like a high school or something, and it was fascinating, man. It was
Yeah.
Platters. I think the Diamonds as well. But I just
Okay.
remember that kind of doo-woppy. I love that sound when I was a kid, like the
Yeah.
melody through the like 50s do and 60s doo-wop, and I just loved it. It spoke to me like it. There's just this kind of yearning cry, and so it's a very convicted sound, and I don't know why I like strings. I love string sections, and a lot of strings were used in that kind of like era, even in
Yeah.
country music and soul, and just kind of it was in a lot of productions to really spice it up, and it just was really, I don't know, man, just kind of heavenly sounding to me, so
Have you tracked some strings in your studio?
yeah, I've tried like yeah, violins and stuff, but I
Okay.
mean that would be a dream come true, man, to have a real string section. I find myself really leaning into using strings, not necessarily like emulate like string emulations, but more like things that kind of like slur out like strings,
Yeah.
I like that, the presence of that in productions just kind of holds you there,
Yeah, for sure, man.
so
I was just listening to something the other day, and I think it might have been Peter Gabriel's Secret World Live album,
okay.
where there's what sounds like some strings, like, and even harmonica that's a really that's what it was. You know what? It was a harmonica solo. It's in the Sting's, um 10 Summoner's Tales album, and I think the song is 7 Days, but it's weird that they would put a harmonica solo in a really intricate song, but it's, or at least it's a simulated harmonica, like mellotron sound, but it really changed the whole dynamic of the tune,
Right.
and, it's beautiful, man, but,
I
you
love
you
that
mentioned
kind.
the Platters being the first
Yeah.
thing, and it's cool that your grandma brought you,
Her
that
friend,
that
yeah.
was
Her name
okay.
is Diane. I used to go like stack her wood and mow her lawn for change. And she had
Yeah.
this, I don't know, I remember this. She had this back in those days, they had these little machines that you could stick on the side of the bathtub and make like a jacuzzi. So it was always like, we're going to Diane's to go in the jacuzzi.
Hanging in her hot tub, which happened to be the
Yeah,
bathtub.
she was cool, man. Yeah.
What was the rest of the family, man? You had siblings, right?
Right, right.
Yeah.
Um, Go ahead.
I was just gonna tell me about your kid, your brothers, sisters, family life.
So I grew up. So I had like I grew up with a stepdad. My real father was he had come over here in the late '60s. He came over from Iran, and
Okay.
so when him and my mom got together, and to be honest, like he never knew about me for the longest time because they had kind of a really, I guess you could say it's kind of a dark split. Um, and just a lot of cultural differences. And
Yeah.
my mother came from she was kind of a farm girl, real tough woman. She was out of Sacramento and kind of
Okay.
up in the farmlands out in Northern California area. And her dad, my grandfather, like I love that man. He was hardcore for sure. And so as kids, I had a brother and a sister. There, and again, I was the youngest, so there's three of us total, and we were just real tight. We were all within like a year or
Oh,
two
wow.
years
Okay.
apart. Yeah, so we were all just kind of these half mixed kids from this previous thing. And then my mom remarried when I was like 3 months old, so I was really young. And um and my stepdad was, he was a character, man. To be honest with you, he's like biker, ex-con, kind of, pretty hardcore cat.
What a
Uh,
change, man, from your
yeah,
Persian dad, right? Like mom wanted to go complete opposite, huh?
bro. The older I get, the more I realize, like, again, I don't try to stay too much in that reflection, but you got
Yeah.
to, man. You got to do inventory. You got to kind of like check in, especially when you know you need to, right?
Yeah, right.
So,
Well, yeah, like some people are defined by their past entirely, and it doesn't have to be that way, right? Because then you live in
right,
that, you never grow. But
yeah. I think for me, it's just like understanding my cultural difference and how it actually played a role in my childhood. And I don't think that I really understood it as a kid. And I think that we weren't really allowed to have that in our home because, my pops, which we call him, he was from like Minnesota. So he's kind of a redneck,
okay,
he was kind of on that side of life.
yeah,
And as a mixed kid, that kind of just innately feels different things. Most of my friends they were kind of, mixed kids, man, or dark skinned or what, what I'm saying? Like, so
yeah,
it was like,
yeah,
I just didn't really think twice about all that sort of environment. Um, but we were fighting the environments that we were in constantly, I mean, it just
I
wasn't
bet.
really natural internally. And I've learned that again later in life. I learned kind of how I don't know how that plays a role in your childhood. So, and then what I was actually drawn to, um, down in like Southern Cal and lived in Texas and a lot of these places as a kid, it's very like multi-diverse. So I don't know, it was just kind of like we had this life outside the house, and then in our house it was kind of another thing.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah.
Are you? Well, let me just like think about during that time you're moving around a bunch. Where did you find that music was a calling for you?
Oh man, I was like really well in San Diego. Okay, I do remember this. I remember seeing live music. I didn't know who it was, but I don't know, man. I just the spirit, the rhythm. I always just floated on that. I'm still
Yeah,
floating on it, man. You know what
yeah,
I'm
I
saying too.
know.
It's like it's a flow state, and you can whistle and walk kind of your way through life. And I think my energy was real drawn to that as a kid, just the joy of music, because I really feel like music was centered. I mean, a lot of people, we see different colors in music, but music is for people. It's about to bring people together. And if you feel that celebration in the music, and I grew up kind of seeing that in music.
Yeah,
I loved it, felt
yeah. I mean,
welcoming.
what was the documentary that came out? So, uh, Questlove found the
Mm,
footage from that show, the Central Park series that was happening during the time that we landed on the moon. And I'm trying. I'm really drawing blanks today, but amazing festivals. A summer-long festival, the Summer of Soul. That was it. Did you happen to catch that documentary?
Never have. I'll check it out though, because it sounds
Dude,
like my thing.
it's totally yeah, man. It's absolutely you. I like Stevie Wonder, early performances of Stevie Wonder up just drum solos, but they had like 1 million people in Central Park that were coming out every week to these festivals, all free, and it was to provide this sort of catharsis for people that were, it was, you got Vietnam on, impending, and you're
Right.
landing on the moon, and the big thing about it was that a lot of it got overshadowed, right? Because there was a song, and I don't remember who it is. Maybe somebody in the chat can provide dogging sort of pop culture or American sort of news culture, because they were making a big deal about Whitey's on the moon, but all this other stuff, all these people are struggling, man. And the whole vibe behind Summer of Soul was to provide this community, like 1 million people community, but bringing all the music together. And it was incredible, man. Earth, Wind and Fire and Stevie and it just, the list went on, but it was beautiful. And that footage disappeared for a long time. And somehow somebody tracked the footage down, and Questlove got a hold of it, and he said, dude, this needs to be out there. And so it was released for a short time in the theaters. And then I think you can get it on like Hulu or something now, but it's a good one. So Dogcatcher here on the chat says, Dave Stewart of Eurythmics co-wrote Don't Come Around Here No More with Tom
There we
Petty.
go. Thank you.
Yeah. Great video. Awesome.
Man,
that was the one. That was Alice in Wonderland video.
That's the song. Yeah, that song stands too, man. Just
Yeah.
the thickness of the thickness of everything, all the analog synths, and just, yeah, it really is as a hybrid of like 70s and like what would become, but they hadn't got quite to that real thin, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But
do you reference when you've got an artist? So you mentioned you've got a hip hop guy in right now. So as Post Malone walks into your studio and he says, "Hey man, I want to have a real big sound here," do you reference like old school like hip hop records and kind of like to try and emulate that sound a little bit as a foundation?
No, not emulate, because
okay,
but sonically, I definitely reference music, because I think that more than people understand. The first things we hear when we hear like a structure of something, it could be as simple as like the brightness or the low end, like it references an era. And if you want to do kind of a modern mix of something, you kind of got to hit all those checkpoints, in my honest opinion.
Sure.
And so if I'm doing something for someone and they're like, I kind of like this dude, I really like, he likes Kodak Black. So it's like, cool, man. And it's cool because I'll sit there and I'll just like, I'll go to the gym and just vibe out to a bunch of that music. And I learn a ton,
I bet.
Yeah. So, but in terms of like my own thing for my own music, like, I think I've surpassed that. But when I started listening to music a lot in my teens, like in headphones, I started seeing the spectrum, what I mean? So you can kind of pick up like where things are sitting in the stereo field and like what instruments and the patterns, Yeah. So
it's weird, man, how different generations were when I know that it has a lot to do with engineering and some technology, but more it was just what was popular at the time.
right.
But you can really hear where vocals came way up front or drums came way up front. Like in those early recordings, drums are so far back in the mix, man, that you can barely hear there's a snare drum, or there might be a kick drum, but there may not, right? There's just no real low end because you couldn't capture that sonic frequency, but now it's completely the opposite, right? There's so much bass and
even if you listen like a lot of music, like even hip hop's coming like late 90s, it's very like the center, everything's very thin in the center,
right.
And like some of my favorite records were from Outkast. I love Outkast, but you go back and listen to them and it's just like the separation and the instruments, like, whereas now we have this sort of like full spectrum, everything's just kind of like the mid low is kind of really full, if you listen to like go ahead.
His vocals, his vocals were packed together so tight, man. You didn't want to lose any. You couldn't throw too much other sonic stuff in there because you didn't want to miss his lyric.
Bro,
so.
I love the production, but I'm gonna tell you a funny thing. Is I went to when I was at NAMM. You go to NAMM, And
Yep.
I was at the NAMM convention, and Young Guru, he mixed a lot of that Outcast stuff.
Oh,
And
really?
there was a question that was asked to him, and he goes, they asked him, and I kind of sat idle, and they're like, if you could go back and like kind of change something about that record, I think it was Equimini, um, and he was like, I would have mixed the low end different. That was he
Yeah.
said straight up, man. And I
And
was
you're
just
like,
like,
thank you.
yeah, man, because I always knew, like, even listen to stuff like, Madonna, all her stuff
Yeah.
in the 80s, you
Heard
go
of
back
her.
and listen to it on monitors, man, and or just your favorite source. The
Yeah.
stuff's very carved out and thin, and
Yeah.
the drums, everything just is, it's not bad. It's just an era of what they were doing during that time.
That was the FM dip, right? That's what talked,
Bro,
right?
like, and maybe like some ADAT.
Yeah.
I don't think that was
Right.
ADAT, but I think that we were kind of coming into that era where it was like digital, analog, digital, like, you
Right.
know. So
Yeah, man. It's crazy. I mean, you have a tape machine right there? You got like 2-inch tape at your place?
no, I don't.
No.
I don't. I have like 4 tracks and stuff I've held on to if I want to do like, you know, I've processed drums and synths and stuff through that. You get a texture, but honestly, they come so far with these plugs, man. It makes you lazy.
Yeah.
You know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the nice thing is, I mean, that stuff took so much time too to cut
Mm,
tape. And, the nice
yep.
thing about digital, right, is that you can, if you're inspired and you're in the studio and you want to get some takes, man, you don't have to go back and cut tape for a couple of hours. We would go, in the studio and take off for lunch, and the engineer's in there
Yeah.
just chopping tape, and you come back after a couple of hours. He's like, I'm almost done, that anymore. Thank goodness you don't have that. But
Kevin, we came up in that though, man, and I appreciate it more than ever. Like with
yeah,
my own music, I'll take the time. Like I'll reamp, stuff. I'll use virtual instruments and reamp them and recapture them because, I want that texture and quality, and I'll blend them in. But with other people, the economics aren't there. That's
yeah,
unfortunate. It's just
right.
there. But that like the first album I did was all like, I was like, man, I got to do it all analog, because that was just like, it was real important to me. But I will say this is that like the conversion I use is kind of like, it was some of the earlier conversion coming out of maybe like the early 90s, I guess, these certain converters, and they were kind of signatured or emulated after how tape records. So
Yeah,
I will say, and I know the difference, like, a lot of people use maybe like UADs and stuff, like these Apollos. I won't get too geeky on you, but like this particular converter I have has really kind of created a marriage. And when I listen to like certain things that were recorded to be like a record, like it comes through, man, like the top end, the low end extension, and it's a really
yeah,
beautiful sound. So I try to get close, I try to kind of like keep that character.
yeah, man. What I'm fascinated by is when a band, even if it's in a venue that's notoriously kind of rough, and Portland has a variety of music facilities that have less than desirable sound, right? And like, I mean, like,
I don't know.
I'm,
Yeah.
but I mean, I like I love going to big, arena shows if the sound production is going to be good. I'm
Yeah.
fascinated when you got a production that can come off so big live. um, there are a handful of bands that are out there that really do it well, and
Mm.
not playing huge venues. I'm a massive geek for this band that when you and I first met, late 90s, I heard this band. I didn't see it then, and now I'm so obsessed with this band, Big Wreck out of Canada. Do you know them at all?
I think I've
Dude,
heard of that band, actually.
the thing about that band, the singer looks like Audio Slave era Cornell, sounds
Okay.
almost identical. He's got the same vocal phrasing and the same tonality in his voice.
Uh-huh.
And I'm a massive Cornell fan. This dude is also a phenomenal songwriter and one of the greatest guitarists I've ever seen in my life. Dude brings me to tears, so much so that I flew to Toronto this spring to go see him, and then I went to Denver a couple weeks ago to see him again.
Really?
The live show is so unique, man. The guitarist does things that I've never seen somebody do before, and it's to me, part of it, it's a drag because they don't have this massive following, right? And
Mhm.
part of it also makes you feel like, yeah, it's kind of like I feel a little sense of ownership. That's my, it's
Yeah,
my.
I
But
get it, man.
yeah, do you have any bands like that you feel like you have a partial sort of connection that way?
Yeah, but what you were mentioning, there there was recently, I want to say it was like 2018 or 19, and this band, this artist, Chloe Chavez, I think is her name. She's crazy.
Yeah.
But her band was named Kitten, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, they were like kind of like that. So I'm getting kind of that similar feeling, like um where you just like you grab a hold and they kind of reignite that live show element. Because man, I remember there was, it's still kind of that way, but like going and seeing a lot of shows that I really really excited about, and in the backing tracks and the whole kind of like it was pretty underwhelming, and you could tell the audience
Yeah.
felt the same. Then you'd
Right.
go see just like this organic band at like Mississippi Studios or something, and you could just feel the warmth of music over the top of you, and
Oh,
you're like, yeah, that's where it's at. So
yeah.
so yeah, Kitten, they're pretty wild. Their little run kind of lasts, but I don't know if you know who Blue. I think her just is Blue. Yeah, the bass player. She's out of
Okay.
New
Yeah.
York.
No.
She blew up out of that band, like so she was like super just starting out, and so she got her like thing through Kittens, going on tour with them, and but yeah, I loved Phanogram when they were
Oh
kind of yeah,
yeah.
they were kind of another really cool artist that they really have a hybrid of sound.
Yeah.
Uh, and they did like they actually paired up with Big Graham, or did Big Grams from Big Boy of Outcast, and so
Okay.
you're hearing like hip hop production mixed with like kind of like indie style, female vocals, and it's just wild, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's so much good music, man. A lot of people are, they go, oh, the oldest. Man, there's so much good music out there, and people are
It's true.
twisted, and it don't good music's good music. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. But if
Yeah.
I went and looked at your record collection right now, what are like the last three that I'd find that you had on your turntable?
I love SZA, man.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm a huge. In fact, I went to Vegas to see her recently,
Oh
so it was like
wow.
one of
Okay.
those things, um, and so probably been spinning a lot of her. I would
Okay.
say,
Yeah.
definitely have probably some. I listen to a lot of music at the gym.
Yeah.
In fact, I got the kind of, I guess I can get the urine review, so I'll just tell you. So the Sword, I don't know if you know who they are. They're like hella
No.
stoner rock, like
Okay.
he's super stony. Probably like, definitely oh man, like their sound's pretty unique, but it's definitely like stoner rock. A
Yeah.
lot.
Like
Uh,
Red Fang, like Portland band, kind of
yeah,
that
yeah.
vibe. All right.
Yeah, like it's got all these like crazy medieval themes or these sort of stories going involved. So it's all on point. But
Yeah.
I snowboard to them, and it's over, man. I'm just like in my own world. And they got a pocket, they got that sort of like bounce to their music, but it's
Yeah.
still kinda, so I like that. And let's see who else. I don't know, man. It's just like I teeter totter. Like I go in these waves where I'll just like wear an artist out,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Me too. Yeah.
you know how it is. So
Well, like I said, it's almost unhealthy the amount I was listening to Big Wreck when at the year end thing, when I look at how much I listened to that band, I
uh,
thought it's probably good that they don't know how much I was listening to it,
uh,
because they'd probably be putting, restraining orders out against me. But I, I, you know, it's funny because learning music for bands, there's a killer band in the UK that I love, and they opened for Flock when we were over a few years ago. And I freaking loved them so much. And then their drummer disappeared. And so they needed a drummer. And I was like working on their stuff because I'm like, dude, I love your music. You just let me know if I got a
get
gap,
the
I'll fly
invite.
over. So I was going to head over, like, I was going to play something in December with them, and ended up that the dates conflicted with what I had going on. So I
Oh,
didn't go, but I listened so much stuff of theirs, and they're called Erica.
Eric,
And it
yeah,
was,
that's
yeah,
cool.
it was really cool band, man. The singer Dalton Woodward is kind of like, kinda has a Muse vibe,
Okay,
like, he sounds a little bit like that. It's a little, sort of that, a little Freddie Mercury vibe in his voice, right?
Okay.
Wicked guitarist. Another, it's a 3-piece, you know, and kind of like Muse, just
Right.
real groove oriented stuff, you know, kind of like Orange Collection, right?
Ah.
So, yeah. Man, so what that's how you and I first met. Orange
Yeah, it
Collection
was. Yeah.
at the Arnada. Oh,
Yeah, man, we used to blow that place up.
yes, you
Kind of
did,
miss
man.
those OG spots.
What brought you here to Portland, man? How did you end up here?
When we moved, when we moved up to this area, I mean, I was actually born in this area. I was born in
Oh,
Vancouver. Yeah,
really?
ironically, and so I'm not really sure what brought my folks. I was a teenager at that point, but we ended up coming, and I think we were getting into high school and stuff, and um, I think it was one of those things like we had to sit still because of like when you go to a lot of different schools and you start having to like transfer credits and all that, it can really mess you up.
Yeah.
So, so that was kind of like a requisite that had to happen for because my dad, he just I don't know what kept him moving. We probably chasing a dollar or something. Who knows? But
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
another story. We can get into it. But so when being over there, it's not that I didn't enjoy the vibe, but I think that I was spending a lot of time over, in this part of the woods because of the culture, the arts,
Yeah.
like original OG, like 90s Portland, like who couldn't dig it, it was like a
Right.
wide open slate of good vibes and, easy living. So,
Yeah.
so finally I had a really slick, easy situation. And I say that because I love the landlords and, I was renting this place, which actually, when I first got there, I was a roommate, and like people just left. And you gotta understand, man, as a kid that moved so much as a kid, uh, like every time I got the opportunity to like have my dresser in one spot, like I really appreciated it. So I just get comfortable, But they never raised the rent, and I ended up building a studio there.
You
So
did.
yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
And so yeah, so I built the studio out of there, and those were all during about those times. But then they like sold the home or something, and so I was like, all right, I'm bailing to Portland and gonna go pay the taxes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
man, there's a difference, right? It's only 5 minutes away, man, but you cross the bridge and it's a different
yeah,
world entirely, man. But
yeah.
guess who showed up in the chat? I see Luke Duran right there,
Oh,
man. It's
my
good to see you,
boy,
buddy.
man. What's up, Luke? Dude,
Nice. Yeah.
thank you for the
Yeah.
shout, man. That he shouted. That was unexpected. I'm not on Facebook much. In fact, I wasn't on there for probably maybe, I don't know, almost 3 years maybe.
Yeah.
And I just
You
jumped
actually
on.
had a life.
Yeah, I'm not really too good at all that stuff. And but it was nice when I came back on there. It was like, oh yeah, this again, and everyone was being nicer to each other, man. I think that's why I bailed. It was like it was just too much for me
Yeah.
at the time. So
Well, you know what? You can only be the diffuser for your close circle, man.
you know what I'm
If you've
saying?
got 5,000 people that you're trying to diffuse, it just doesn't work that way, right?
It's a lot of energy to take in. I don't think humans are
Yeah.
built to do that, man. I really don't.
You know what? That's a
Yeah.
good point, man. I think I probably allowed that to get to me back in
I think a lot
in
of
those
people
days.
do.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I had to change or pivot, the way that I looked at all that energy that was coming in. Cause
Yeah.
I mean, I talk about serenity stuff a lot, I
Yeah.
go out and I get my 60 seconds of serenity with my dog. And that's the stuff that's right there in front of me that I have control over. I
Yeah.
can't control all the sort of outside world, but,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, what do you do to get zen? You talked about hitting the gym a lot.
Yeah, man. It's real simple. I wake up and I love vitality, man. I love that feeling. I felt stagnant in my body. In fact, I think you remember there was a time when I had really bad back issues because I think you were going through
Yeah,
some similar stuff.
yeah,
And I learned a lot just about like how to keep your body out of like an acidic state. So I think that's a huge thing for me. And I do whatever it takes, man. So the gym is really, yeah, it's a big part of my life. Like getting like setting the day up that way, waking up. I love getting educated too, man. Like I listen to a lot of stuff, not necessarily like biased stuff, not like jumping on the train with this or that, but I love to hear I love to learn about stuff, man, about like history and life and economics. I'm really big into that right now. Just like starting my day with intelligent, you know, like stuff that's gonna kind of set my day up.
Yeah.
So we kind of like, well, I'll make a beautiful breakfast and like throw that stuff on like the stereo system, just Bluetooth it out, and then just kind of like spend good hour there, and then hit the gym, and yeah, that kind of sets me up for the day. But you know, in the winter, I love seasons. So in the winter, I snowboard a ton. I love snow. I
Yeah.
can't wait. Like I'm trying to go tomorrow, but I think there's a blizzard up there, so I think I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
wait. So do
I,
you like?
I was coming down 2 days ago when it was going on. And actually,
Oh, right.
I got the front end of that massive pileup, but yeah, you know what I mean. Putting good stuff in, right?
Yeah.
Is that setting yourself up? I think that probably goes way back to that early. You talked about being surrounded by maybe a little bit of drama early on, and just making sure that you lead with a smile. And I mean, Luke is the same way. I watch what Luke does, and online he promotes so much positivity. There's a lot of healthy eating, a lot
Yeah.
of respect and appreciation for good culture, great literature, and certainly good music. So you guys did some great music early on. Orange Collection was the first band that you guys did together, right?
Yeah, man. I loved what we did. You know, we had a great group, man. And Luke he's fundamental, man, because the bottom end, the groove, like that was really
Yeah.
important, man. You gotta, when you're trying to glue those pieces together, like I knew for like at the time, like I played the bass, we tracked out that EP with, you remember Shane, man, my original
Yeah,
drummer.
of
That
course.
was my
Yeah.
brother in music. Like um
I thought you were brothers when I first met you. I really thought you were blood brothers.
we're like bros, man. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
He just hit
Yeah.
me up the other day. I mean, I love that dude. Always, no matter where, when, and what. But yeah, him and I were both, as drummers, like we just both had a certain sort of swing, about our rhythm. And so when I started writing and playing guitars and stuff, we were busking a lot, and just like those dudes,
Yeah.
and we were good at banter, and just kind of like you could throw us into anything. We were kind of the dudes,
Yeah. Yeah. I remember.
Yeah, we've been around. And so when we met Luke, Luke's a classic bassist, by the way. He's like what a bass player is, chill. He was kind of like the mediator of, because Shane and I, we could be like, we're bros,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he brought
He
that,
was the
man.
diffuser in your band, huh?
Man, he brought it, and that really helped us out a lot, because we played a lot of gigs with Luke, and
Yeah.
we just had a beautiful time, man. And he's a funny dude too, man.
Yeah.
I love his sense of humor. Like, you wouldn't know it at the
Right.
time.
Yeah. Yeah. Behind the curtain, dude had it.
Yeah,
It
man.
had that sense
It's
of humor.
really important. I laugh, like having a sense of humor, in my opinion, is really important.
Amen. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like fast forward into the new music, because he talks about your new music. Awesome. I mean, Stay
Thank,
Forever. You've released is killer, and you produced
thank you,
that,
man.
of course.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Were you playing all the instruments on that?
Yeah, man, I'm kind of there anymore. It's just easier.
Yeah.
Uh, I think that's I think that's ultimately why I started doing it young, because it was hard to get. Honestly, it was hard to get people in a room and get them motivated.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I'm kind of a wiry cat, so I was like always just like, well, we gotta go. So it's like I
Yeah.
gotta figure this out. And I never really was a formal guitar player. I kind of just, they would be around if you'd be in a band or whatever playing drums. They'd be around, or my brother had a guitar, and so I would kind of just figured it out. So I'm kind of just like a fill player,
Yeah.
uh, and still to this day, I would hand it out, but I do understand tone, and that was my biggest probably achievement, is just like knowing how to like get tone, the right
Yeah.
kind of tone, you know what I mean? And
Who's got your favorite guitar tone?
dang, man, you want to be honest?
Yeah.
There's this record by the Scorpions called "Fly to the Rainbow." And this is
Julie
that is
Roth, man.
Julie Roth, man. And that record, I got a hold of it really young, randomly. We got $10 for Christmas, and I talked my buddy's brother into selling me his cassette collection when I lived in Arizona. I remember, man, they lived on this long. Anyway, I won't go into it, but I love that record, man. I got a hold of this. It was
Wow.
like just a beat up little tape, and that record blew my mind. And I
That's
still
crazy.
think it's heavy. It's like his playing on that's just
Yeah.
ridiculous. Um, it was one of those that you feel with that band out of Canada. Like not many people know about that album, and it's funny. I was
Yeah.
actually in where I was in remember Montage in Portland.
Oh yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
and someone was
Rest in peace,
playing that album
Montage.
one night, man, and I just was like,
Wow.
"Holy!"
Oh
Like
yeah.
it literally made my like week, man. It blew my mind, and ended up going out and getting the CD right away. I was like, I gotta get this thing. I gotta
That's
re-get it,
so great. That record, man. I mean, honestly,
bro.
I since childhood, man, that was my favorite band forever. And old school Scorps and like Sales of Sharon, when that came out, because that has that kind of guitar tone that you're talking about too. That Uli just like nobody played like him, and
No, man. I mean,
like
I'm gonna be honest. Like he was doing Pink Floyd, Hendrix. Like you heard
yeah,
all his like emulations, but regardless, man, he was killing. Obviously, I was a
yeah,
huge Jimi Hendrix fan. I have been a
yeah.
Hendrix fan ever since I saw him on Headbangers Ball as a kid.
Oh yeah,
I'm like,
man.
this dude's on. I don't care, man. That's my
Right.
guy.
Yeah. Because of the timeliness of it, I just got to point out today lost Scorpions drummer James Kotak, and
Oh, really?
yeah, he was in the band 20 years.
I
Got
saw
to
him
know James.
play. Hmm.
Yeah, I get to know James fairly well, and you and I have talked about this element of the business, a bunch. I mean, James, he lost his gig because of his struggles with alcoholism. He
Oh,
alcohol was not his friend, man,
yeah.
and I watched because I was a big Scorpions fan. I talked about the allegiance we have for the bands that mean something to us, right?
Hmm.
And so watching the band prior and then going to see them with him, and I saw how all the attention he wanted to focus on him. And I'm like, dude, Scorps was never about that. I mean, Klaus is always the singer, but you had each guitarist in the band was always, a big thing. And it was a bummer for me. I lost a lot of vibe with Scorps. I mean, besides the whole whistling, winds of change kind of thing, but um
That's a
how
trippy.
having I'm
Uh,
sorry, go ahead.
I just got to bounce off that, man. It's funny you say that because I actually saw so my Jess, she grabbed me tickets to them. I mean, I was like, cool. Like I know that girl would have been a certified butt rocker if she would have came through that era. She loves that stuff.
Yeah.
Probably more than me. I'm like, I've kind of moved, but still always like we go. And then that dude,
Yeah.
I remember him playing with them and what you just said, like you could definitely tell he needed. I'm like, that's like Tommy Lee, which he like dated his sister or something, or wasn't he
Yeah, he was
dating?
married to Tommy's sister. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like catching the Tommy Lee vibe thing and the whole
Yeah.
thing. And I've actually saw Scorps another time. I saw him in Vegas, and they weren't. I don't think he played with them on that tour though.
Mickey
Uh,
D, right? Mickey D was playing by then.
I think it was a couple years ago, Kevin. Yeah,
Yeah, Mickey D from Motorhead and King Diamond, and he's
yeah,
wicked drummer. He really brought the energy back to Scorps. It's awesome, But rest in peace, James Kotak. I
yeah.
mean, it's a drag. I looked at a
That's
lot of tributes to him today, and I knew his ex-wife, got to meet his kids. And for me, I think about legacy a lot, man. As my parents are older, my dad's hit 90
right.
this year. I think about what we leave behind, at the end. And every single piece of news that I saw about James was about his alcoholism. And it's a drag, man, to think that that's the legacy, right? Dude had 20 years in the
Feel you, man.
Scorpions. He was, like it's a tragic thing. And I really feel for his kids,
Mm,
that's all that people are talking about and that's what they remember. What
mm.
what do people want to know about Sean Berahmand when Sean's time passes? What do you want to be
Well,
known for?
you know, it's a lot of that resonates with me, bro, because obviously like I'm sober and I, my pops passed, the pops, in 2019, and it took a lot for me to show up, but I'm gonna do it, man. I'm a man of grace
Yeah.
and honor, and I needed to do it, and it's an interesting story. He rocks, man. That guy was an alcoholic all his life. My pops used to drink, you know, uh one of those half gallons, down with like this much left. He'd probably do one of that situation probably 3, 4 times a week. So he gassed it up hard, and of course, a lot of stuff comes of that. Um, but but I saw him go out of this. I saw him pass, and he was on dialysis leading up to in 2018, going up into like I saw him over the holidays, and we just knew, he wasn't well and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I took myself over there. I didn't spend a lot of time at my folks' place, just for it's hard when you're a person of truth, and kind of like I'm kind of a no BS kind of cat when it comes to like just being transparent and real about
Yeah.
stuff. You know what I mean? And I'm not really big on that sort of deceitful energy, and or hiding the truth, or especially when it's caused a lot of issues. We got to get right. And I always wanted that with them, and it never really happened. And right up to that point, but I still kind of stayed the course, and put a smile on and stuff, and especially in that case. And so when he was on dialysis, and just after the new year, he went in to get a checkup, and it was kind of like on the radar. So he goes to get a checkup, and they're pretty much like, man, this ain't working out for you.
Wow.
And they pretty much said, there's nothing we can do. And this man was, he wasn't well, but I mean, he was coherent and everything. And
Well, sure.
he got sent home with about 5 to 7 days, and they took him off dialysis, and he just sat there, and they all pulled up his buddies and what buddies he had, and he ran a lot of people off in life, and this and that. And so, the ones that were his diehards showed up, and he ate his last meal. He didn't finish he wanted his favorite meal. I think it was like steak or something, and he didn't even make it through that, and I just witnessed all this stuff, man. And
wow.
And we're all in this kind of small apartment thing, and it was just kind of like it was kind of like what you're saying, man. It was like it was a really big reality check in terms of like the choices we make in life, man, and what we're remembered for, and how fast it goes. Life,
Yeah.
it can you can literally get that wiped out from underneath you, and every second is an opportunity to kind of write your obituary the way you want, man. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. And the dude, in his case, he didn't do that, man. And it was really kind of it was a wicked thing to see, because I knew him as my dad, and it was just really it was really cheap, man, to be honest. Like, that's the only word I could walk away with. I haven't been back there since. I mean, he, like, I held his hand, and just kind of went through the whole thing, man.
Yeah,
And
buddy.
and it just, there's so many emotions, but just it just felt cheap, man. And so
Yeah.
when I see this kind of stuff, because I think that in it too is like, the world's unforgiving right now, man. People are not, they cling to that negative thing, and that's it. That's all you get.
Yep.
You have, what I mean, you were a pervert, or whatever, what I mean?
Right.
Like, nobody sees any of your deeds, man.
Yeah. No, that's the truth, man. I mean, they only remember your last misgiving, right?
You know what I'm saying? And so
it's true. Yeah.
And
dude, listen, one thing I have to say, you talked about your transparency and your authenticity, and I really appreciate that about you, man. I mean, dude, there's nothing that you don't shy away from feelings, and it's important, man, because dude, you're this sort of, you're in a bunch of different roles, man. I see you as this sort of masculine singer, songwriter, studio guy, but you're not afraid of showing emotion.
Yeah.
And in a lot of those families, right? I mean, if you're a child of an alcoholic, you see people kind of hide emotions, right? Because it just feels awful to feel. You don't want to even, give any attention to those feelings, because it hurts. It feels shitty. And when I've heard you talk about early life, how the stuff that was difficult, you smile your way through, but it's not you're faking it till you make it kind of vibe. It's more, I'm going to make this be the sort of vehicle to get me to the other side of this, so that it doesn't define who I am, how, because you were that diffuser for the siblings, man, was there any sort of closure with your brother and sister with your pop?
Unfortunately not, I think that, I mean, it was probably as messy as you could imagine, in terms of
Yeah.
like, uh,
Resentments.
oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure, man.
Yeah.
And just distance, I mean, I think in many years we're leading up to that, and even my relationship with my mother, unfortunately, it's like she was probably a traditional woman in the sense that, she stands by her man, and I think that that created an incredible amount of distance between her children. And I think that all
Yeah.
her children, we again we come from a sense of culture where there's a strong loyalty, and there's also in the Persian spirit, it's like that's how, like, there's a lot of intellects and poetry and emotion and feeling, and that it wasn't like for us it wasn't weird. And both of my siblings are like that. We're very expressive, we all speak
Yeah.
similar. And so to have this sort of like ability and this sort of desire, but not have a family unit to kind of pour that into and see blossom with what we had
Yeah.
to offer, was really hard, man.
I'll
and
bet,
and
man.
yeah, and I think that we all kind of really struggled on our own terms very deeply, and I think I had a lot of empathy for both my brother and sister too, man, just because like um, you know, just loved them and felt their loss, felt the loss for my sister for a mom, and
Yeah.
felt my big brother, because I saw the way they negotiated spending time or just being lovable and
Yeah.
embracing, they were pretty numb in that sense and cold, to be honest with you, man. And so
Yeah.
it creates a lot of like I guess you could say abandonment issues, or kind of like you feel a little orphaned, because it doesn't seem it's against the grain, man. And again, it is a lot. It has, in my honest opinion, it has a lot to do with, it's a downline, man. I knew my pop's story, I knew my mother's story. I never held that against them. And I know tons of people that have dealt with this, man. And it's just a thing that's gonna continue through a lot of people's lives. But
Yeah.
shit rolls downhill, man.
Yes, it
you
does,
know,
man. I mean,
and
it takes a lot of work to break that
yeah,
cycle, man. It really does, you know?
yeah.
It
And
um
coping is a real thing, and everyone has their own way of doing it. Now, I think the biggest way out is when you learn that you're coping with things that you're not dealing with, and you're doing it in very toxic or unhealthy ways that really close off your self-awareness and your ability to be present with those around you, and really see the things that are actually of great value to your life, and build, like you said, legacy with those things. uh,
yeah.
Simple as that, to be honest with you.
Man, I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, that you could take bullet points from what you've said tonight and come up with a brochure about, sort of self-awareness I will say, as a dovetail to this too, man, one thing that I've watched with Sean Berahmand's life is that you've got an amazing partner by your side too,
Mhm.
man. I
Thank
I,
you.
I think your relationship with Jess to me is inspiring. I love the way you guys support each other in your
Man, I
endeavors,
appreciate
and
it.
she's um, dynamic, business woman, and also, just really dedicated to, your guys' connection. And I think, you hold strong relationships up. I do. I put them up on a shelf when I see people that they've worked really well at, at reciprocating, love and affection and attention. And so, kudos to both you guys for putting in the effort and
I
making that
appreciate
work.
it.
And you're a busy guy, dude. I mean, the fact that you've got you've got your really sort of design construction business, you've got your music studio. Is it Studio Dig is the name of the
Sunset
place?
Sunset
Sunset
Day.
Dig, Sunset
Yeah.
Dig Studio. Yeah, so you've got a lot of stuff going on, and yet you guys seem to um, uh, she seems to handle that situation and sharing Sean with the rest of the world pretty well, huh?
Uh, you know, it's been like we honestly are like, we're coming up 15 years, brother. Like,
Wow, that's
yeah,
cool.
and I don't really have all the answers, man. I think the biggest thing, and Jess and I, we're homies, man. You know, we've always been like that since day one. And um, we're both really graceful people, which helps. You know, we're respectful. We still say thank you to each other. You know, we just like, it's just really sweet the way we treat each
Yeah,
other, and we treat others like that too. You know, so I think that's really important. It's very authentic in our lives. You know, and it's not like we don't have our issues, like, you know,
of course.
normal couples and stuff, but we really kind of try to find a respectful way of dealing with it. And then we also like really we really keep it to ourselves, man. You know what I mean? It's like one thing that I learned going into that relationship, and I was kind of like, didn't want to make that mistake again. You know, I was like, you know, let's whatever's going on here, you know, it's not something you got to go and tear each other down outside the relationship, or, you know, ask people, well, why is she like that, or he, you know, yada
Yeah,
yada. Like, let's have the hard conversations, man. You know,
yeah,
and as a result, like, she's helped me tremendously, man. I mean, I would not be the person I am without that woman's essence in my life. You know what I mean?
that's
100%. Yeah.
that's beautiful, man.
Yeah. And
I mean, that's
I
legacy
let her
stuff right
know.
there.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
Like,
that
she
is. I
gave,
mean, really.
well, go ahead. Sorry,
No,
but
I was just gonna say. I mean, those are the things. At the end of the day, when you look back at all the experiences you had,
yeah.
I've said a million times. I tell my kids, because as my kids were teenagers and early 20s, like things seemed very important, right?
Mhm.
Acquisitions and stuff. And I just said, man, the experiences and the effect you have on others, to me, there's a quote from Jim Carrey, right, when he said to a bunch of marketing students, because you're out marketing and making money, and he said, dude, no, he didn't say dude, he said, the effect you have on others is the greatest form of currency there is. And it's true. I mean, the way that you
Right.
make people feel is much more important than
Oh,
like,
man.
yeah. But it sounds like she's done that for you, and vice versa, huh?
Yeah, I think she just, you know, I think from the jump, man, she showed me a love that I had not experienced, you know. Um, and I think she loved me more than I probably loved myself at the time, you know what I
Mm,
mean? And I think it was loud without even knowing it. And I think, um, well, just to be very clear, man, prior to meeting her, I was in a hard place. You know, I was with a girl that, you know, bless her soul, rest in peace. You know, she had cystic fibrosis, and she was she was dying in front of me, man, and it was a really hard time. And we had a place together in Northeast Portland, and you know, she was hooked to 4 liters of oxygen, dragging it around, and life was fading daily for her. And she ended up getting a lung transplant, you know, kind of last minute. She was in the hospital, and she was on her deathbed, brother, and she got a lung transplant. And she got a new lease on life, you know, and it was just a really hard time. And to be clear, man, I think I really, the only way I could cope with that at the time, or the only way I did cope with it, is I started drinking
yeah,
and numbing out, man, because it was emotions that I had never really been that close to. I've had a lot of loss, but not like that, you know.
yeah.
Um,
To see it on the daily and have it
she
right
was so
there, just
young, man. She was, you
yeah.
know, late, what, 27, 28, you know, and it was
Wow.
just like you just, and it's not something she asked for. It was just she was born with it, you know, and it just was running
Yep.
its course. And um, so it was really hard, man. And it was just a lot of, you know, you can never do enough when you're with somebody and next to somebody that's going through that. You know, you have a lot of you have a lot of guilt in your step, because
I
you
bet.
don't know what to do. And I had no guidance. I had no family helping me. I had no support. I wasn't really asking for it either, you know. But at
Yeah,
the
right.
same, I just didn't, I was trying to get through it, man. And so that, once she got her lung transplant, which was a beautiful, beautiful thing. It was actually on MLK Day coming up, and
Wow.
down in Stanford. And so I ended up, you know, clearly a relationship. Like when you're dealing with something like that, there's really no relationship. It's a friendship. It's a
Yeah.
support. It's like, so at that point, I knew that, you know, we had to kind of figure something out, and I didn't really want to hold her up on her next leg of life, you know. And you really don't, even when you get like a lung transplant, you know, there's like a 50-50, you know, it's like 50 in 5 years, they say. So she made it 10 years, man. And that was actually
Wow.
again 2019. She passed in September, and it was really hard, man. It was really I was really kind of was really shook from that, even after the fact, and hadn't even stepped out of that world, because I'd known her a long time and all that, and I really just championed her success in life, man, and saw a lot of great things come out of her, her change as a person and this and that, and so it was really beautiful, and that was from afar. But I had met Jess just probably that early part of summer after that whole situation. That was like through spring and stuff. I was really trying to get back up on my feet, at the time in
Yeah.
09. And so, when I met Jess, I just had this sort of kind of like way of coping with stuff. And that was alcohol. And so, didn't really accept it, cause you rock and roll, you just figure, oh, we're rock and roll. It's how, we go,
Right.
you
Par for
know,
the course.
you know what I mean? And so,
Yep.
and it took me about 3 years of being that dude, maybe 3.5 or so, and she just like really had so much grace on me. She just loved me no matter what, and I never really
Wow.
understood. I'm like, man, like she's loved me more than me, because I knew I was the way I was handling stuff, and I knew it wasn't right. And
Yeah.
I think one day I just it was after the New Year's, man, 2013. She just like turns over to me and she's just like, I don't really like the way you make me feel.
Wow.
So I think like
Wow.
2 months later, just, that's why I really think that it's important for people that if they love you, they gotta say something in those ways, and she just happened to find the right timing, and she always held herself in sort of a grace, and just let me be. But at that point,
Dude,
we were already married and stuff, and I was just like, and it just hit me hard, and I was just like,
she might have saved your life, bro.
she
You
did.
know? Yeah.
100%. Yeah. No, she
Yeah.
definitely planned. I've had a lot of that in my life, Kevin. I've had people that just because, again, the way I was raised, man, in my home, like I could cuss as a child. Like we didn't have, there was no filter in our home. And my dad gave me my first beer when I was 9 years old. There, we're gonna
Right.
did a great job today, son. So it's just like they rocked it different, man. So I didn't have a lot of accountability, like, you know what I'm saying? And so your self accountability is very skewed.
Yeah. Right.
So she gave me that.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. She just gave me that, and so that was such a gift, man. Such a gift to my life, and so I was like, oh, so that's when I started kind of getting more into like, I went and like got into therapy and just started kind of like untangling the story, figuring the story out. What's the story?
Yeah.
Who the hell are you, man? And let's dig in, and it didn't happen overnight. It's one of those things that you just kind of like piece by piece, and she just let me be, man, and I'd go and talk to this lady in a room, and then that ran its course, and just kind of went through some other folks that and I even embraced someone in 2019. I was like, man, I need it, and I was in a really strong place,
Yeah.
through my journey. I'm still sober. I just passed 10 years in March, and
Yeah, buddy. Congrats,
you know what I
man.
mean.
Well,
And so,
you talked about the inventory, you mentioned and like
yeah,
even though you're in a great strong place, when you go back in, when you do checks, right? You're doing mind checks and body
constantly,
checks and yeah,
constantly.
whether you're sober or not or working on anything, the concept of recovery, people
Mhm.
like might not think about that, but really the concept of recovery, right, is you're trying to find a design for living that's better than, what you had before. And you
Yeah.
had all sorts of foundation of ways that were not healthy, early on in your childhood, man, in ways that you could have followed that pattern the rest of your life. But props to Jess for sticking around long enough and finding the right, really, I
Right.
mean, the way to, to extend, a loving, kind way to say, hey, man, I don't like the way you make me feel,
Mm,
that's because ultimately, a perfect partnership, man, you want to build each other up and make each other feel great. And when she's not feeling that, right? I mean, that's the ghost of whatever else is going on with you. And so she recognized that that wasn't you, that she wanted the real Sean. And the fact that
100%.
you went out and did the work, man,
Yeah.
it's it's I mean, that's what it means to be a man, right? So me to
Hey,
be hearing.
love is strong like that, and it gives you a reason. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's the beautiful thing about it. Um, And thank God she gave me a reason. I don't know that I had one before, and nothing is strong enough, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think that and simplicity, and I think that also what you said earlier, um, the feeling of somebody like giving you a feeling. You don't have to say nothing, man. People are intelligent, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you can say all you want. You can talk the charm off your teeth, to somebody, but if you don't make them feel good, they remember it. You know what I
Yep.
mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so
That's Luke. Luke just says in the chat, and you're still the sweet, honest soul I've always known. It's nice to hear your journey. Yeah, I mean, that's one thing, dude, that
uh,
people might not realize that that's what they get coming to work with you in the studio. It's like, yeah, you've got your engineering skills, but there's a part that I would bet that you bring in, a spirit, a soul that you bring into a project with somebody that they're not going to get that, and it just your run of the mill studio, man. So that's a gift that you're bestowing upon others too.
the best I got, Kevy. Like it's funny you say that, man, because like the cat I had in, it was just him and I. We kicked it for 2 hours over tea and some food and just talk life, man. We're all students of life, man. I mean, ain't nobody
Amen.
gets it right, and so it's like, it's funny you say that, man. It's just like it's a really big part. We're talking about how I stay zen or this or that, but those sort of connections and connecting with people that I have to like, even if in building, and I've worked in done projects for people, like it's really important that I, number one, make them feel comfortable that I'm in their home. I understand that, man. I wouldn't want someone that's aloof in my space, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like I
Yeah.
have to really give them a good sense of me, and I have to get a good sense of them because I got to make sure I'm getting my money or whatever, and
Yeah.
it's just all aspects of life, and so the coolest thing about practicing your own sort of, I guess, value in that is that you can establish that in your circle of life, and it really is peaceful, man. It's very joyful, and those are the people you're going to interact with. So like, I'm getting to know this new artist, and like we connect, and the beautiful messages like he sent me this morning, just like we appreciate those times, that fellowship, I
Yeah.
guess you could say, just kicking it, and just like giving little nuggets of life to kind of like make it to tomorrow and just keep it moving. So yeah,
Yeah,
you're
man.
right about that. It's really important to me, and honestly, way above money and all that stuff. That stuff don't even, I gotta have a good day, man.
Yeah, I
you know
love that, man. I mean, this is what it's all about for me. This kind of
I
hang, dude.
yeah,
It's why I do the show. I just,
right.
I've cherished the times that I've had with you, to get to see you on stage and even just off stage and get to know you more. But I appreciate you sharing your heart. It's
Yeah,
amazing, and
absolutely,
to
brother.
really know what depth you and Jess have had, in order to not only build the foundation but fortify what you got to. I think that's a gift and a really cool story.
Thank
I
you.
need to give her some credit for me when you
I
talk to her,
do,
dude.
man.
Tell her like, thank her for me for having that hard conversation. Being willing to say this is what I need from you. And props to
Yeah,
you for doing it, man. I'm really proud of you, buddy.
I appreciate that, brother. Yeah,
Yeah, man.
yeah, she's a song.
Um, we should all be so fortunate at the end of the day, right? I mean,
Uh,
that's what we all, but you've already, you've already sort of chiseled away at your legacy piece that you when I was asking you what you wanted people to remember at the end, you
mm,
certainly saw things that you didn't want to be remembered for,
mm.
you've told me
Sorry about
that.
that.
No, no, I mean, I see, right? That you saw all sorts of reasons what you don't want to be remembered for, you know?
um,
And
well, I'll tell you if you're asking me,
yep.
because there's something that is it's just really concerning to me anymore about, I'm not really one of these skeptics. Like I'm embracing like one thing I was going to tell you, like when I say learning and stuff, I'm a lot of what I'm learning is it's like how history repeats, but also um how new infrastructure is coming into our life, AI, and I want to
Yeah.
really embrace technology and understand it in the like a human way. So so one thing that I really value, and I still value, again, it kind of goes back to like how I spent time, let's say yesterday with my boy Devonte. It's like I never want to lose the essence of like I'm a great brother. I'm a great like to anyone, you know. I mean, I kind of present myself. I even call people, you know, like that, you know, sis, my brother, whatever, because I was the little bro that like I was good at being a little brother, you know what I mean? And it's a real familiar family style of language, but it's also about connection, you know, and it's hard to see it's kind of hard to see us like lose a little bit of that, you know, in life. And with everything kind of going fast, or you know, just even people being a little more fearful of getting hurt or stepping in
Mm.
because we all kind of think we know who they are or what they are because the comment sections say that, you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah, right.
everyone's branded, man.
Yeah.
And I think what I want to be remembered for, Kevin, is the guy that just kind of like, I'm a little naive, you know. I keep myself naive, and I'm not the knower, you know. I'm not like the been there done that, you know, because I just had this conversation with one of my friends this morning, you know. um and he's younger, you know. But it's one of these things where you're just like, you never want to know too much, you know. You kind of just want to embrace everything with a smile, and just kind of like show up and just be a good friend, you know, be a good listener, be a positive, you know, like have your positive aura, like don't bring your baggage, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just like let's just kind of like let's just interact that way. And so I think that's what I try to really push in life, is just like um you know, just let that stuff roll off, man. Zoom out. Life's short. It really is, you know. And we can carry more than we really are designed to carry, you know. And so like really focus on those the simple stuff, you know. And
Yeah.
yeah, man. Something like
Ah,
that.
that I like that. It's
Yeah,
yeah, man, that's a very valuable observation, valuable perspective, man. I appreciate
yeah,
that.
yeah.
I'm grateful for you, Sean Berahmand.
Likewise,
I
brother.
am.
Thank you.
If you guys got here late and you missed all sorts of beautiful sentimental conversation that we just had, you can go back and look at the beginning, make sure that you like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you want to go check out some of Sean's bio info and look at his music, you can go to berahmandmusic.com. There's a link down below. And I would love it if you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Tomorrow night, Mickey Thomas, you knew him from maybe some of those big MTV hits from Starship with Find Your Way Back and Jane, all the way up to We Built This City. But starting off at the beginning with the Elvin Bishop Band, man, we had Fool Around and Fell in Love. Gorgeous, beautiful rock ballad, right? And kind of a soul ballad almost, man. But
I remember that
that'll
too.
be fun. I'm excited, man. Mickey's a good guy. And at 74, still sings like a bird, dude. It's crazy.
Dang.
But
What an
we should
OG.
all be so fortunate for that too, right?
Yeah,
You
man.
will be. I believe that, man. The way you're taking care of yourself, it's great.
Oh, brother, I'm a
But
lifer, man. I'm a
good.
lifer. Like,
Yeah, that's good. Folks, man, I do appreciate you guys being here. Look forward to catching you guys again. Take a lot of what Sean said today to heart. Don't take anything for granted. Take good care of your body and your mind. Put good stuff in, and good stuff will come out, right?
simple as that.
Sh- Sean
Don't
Brahman,
overthink
man, go
it.
give Jess a squeeze and kick some
uh,
booty on this project, man. Sunset Dig Studio, right?
yeah, man. And we have a
All right.
.com. I'm probably in the process of updating a lot of stuff too this season. So for 24.
All right.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, folks, go out and check out sunsetdigstudios.com then too. And we will see Barahman on a big stage hopefully soon.